Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm grateful for the opportunity and for the organization to bring this important subject to the summit. And I'll show you a little bit about the Brazilian experience on scaling up best practice to reduce methane emissions from livestock in Brazil. I myself am a researcher from Embrapa, the Brazilian Agency for Agricultural Research, and it's been a year that I was invited to be the Director of Sustainable Production at the Ministry of Agriculture. Let's see if, okay, it's working. So I'm going to tell you briefly about the history of this sectorial plan. 14 years ago, the Brazilian government decided to implement a sectorial plan to fight climate change in agriculture and livestock production. And since then, we've been fostering, promoting the adoption of sustainable practices that are not only environmentally friendly, but also profitable for the producers. I'll show you briefly in the next slide. And here, last year at COP28 in Dubai, we have launched this ebook that summarized the information about the first decade when we managed to expand the adoption of sustainable practices in Brazil in 54 million hectares, and also to mitigate around 200 million tons of CO2 equivalent. That was the first phase of the plan. It's called the ABC plan. That's the Portuguese acronym for Low Carbon Agriculture Plan, and targets not only CO2, but also CH4 and nitrous oxide. That's the rationale, the strategy of the plan. It's simple, but that's probably why it's been working. So we are providing science-based solutions that are sustainable practices and technologies for the producers. How do we do that? By providing government financial incentives like rural credit. We are talking about loans, not subsidies. That keeps the activity competitive, and we are not trying to reduce that. And also, we are addressing the farmers' needs. Agriculture is a private activity, and it must be locally adapted. So the producers, the farmers, the ranchers, they are adopting those technologies because they are profitable for them. They reduce costs, they increase productivity, or they add value to some residue. But the co-benefit is that they are environmentally sustainable, and that's why we must rely always on science-based solutions. Of course, we need technical assistance and robust monitoring platforms. These are some of the results that we have achieved the last decade. I'm talking about the recovery of degraded pastures, and from 2000 to 2021, we have managed to increase well-managed pastures in Brazil from 25% to over 37%, and also to reduce severely degraded pastures from 34% to almost 22%. This type of good practice increase productivity and reduce methane intensity per unit of product. We are also promoting the adoption of integrated crop, livestock, forestry systems. The production systems in Brazil are mainly pasture-based grazing systems. Although we have some feedlots, they are mainly dedicated to the last phase of production, fattening and termination, and they are not widely adopted. We are usually use pasture-based systems. And mostly crop livestock integration is increasing recently in Brazil, and we've managed to leverage from 3 million hectares in 2005 to almost 17 million hectares in 2020. And by integrating that, we have a land-saving effect. We can offset enteric methane emissions, and we can also address soil and water conservation. Historically, the adoption of those sustainable practices that's accelerating in recent years, in the last 14 years, due to the adoption of the ABC plan, is reducing the emissions per animal. I'm talking here about methane emissions, so it has reduced about 10% in that time period from the 90s until 2016. We are currently updating this data to communicate to UNFCCC. Sorry, it disconfigured the slide, but you can see that's for the second phase of the plan. That's my last slide. And I'm showing that we have a more ambitious target for this phase. From 2021 to 2030, we are targeting the mitigation of 1.1 gigaton of CO2 equivalent by the adoption of several sustainable practices and technologies in Brazil. Regarding specifically the methane agenda, which is a part of this plan, we are promoting the recovery of degraded pastures, also expanding the integrated systems, of course, manure treatment and intensive fattening. We are also investing in an innovation agenda dedicated to animal breeding, the development and use of feed additives and new forages. There are some forages that can also reduce methane emissions for enteric fermentation. And we are targeting some emissions from irrigated rice. That's not the main source of emissions, of methane emissions in Brazil, but we are also targeting it. Thank you very much for the attention.